Tony Perkins, thank you for being here, president of the Family Research Council and organizer of this Values Voter event. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Matt.
So GOP momentum in the midterms so far in the primaries and the Tea Party power across the nation, obviously values that you've always strived to promote. Excited this year about the wider acceptance possibly of these values and how it might turn out for the midterm elections and the general election?
Yeah, I'm encouraged by what I see happening. I think what's happened over the last 18 months in America is we're seeing kind of a civic awakening. Americans coming to a realization that, if you don't like the way the country is going, well then, get off the couch, turn off the TV and do something about it. And that's what's happening. Americans are taking responsibility for our country, and they're getting involved.
Christine O'Donnell won the Republican primary in Delaware, and she's also a speaker here at the Values Voter Summit. Does her kind of background as an ordinary person encourage you that citizens who are not very wealthy, very well known in the political arena can in fact run for office?
It does. It really says two things. One, it says, and this race, was not so much about Christine O'Donnell. It was about Mike Castle and liberal Republicans who feel like it's that these offices naturally accrue to them because they've been around for a long time. And what you had is a political newcomer, novice, who went out, had a values message which was across the board, not just socially conservative, but fiscally conservative. That connected with the Tea Party. The Tea Party got behind her. Other conservative-minded voters got behind her. So, enough of the problem in Washington, the Republican establishment is just as bad as the Democratic establishment, and that's what happened. And the Republican establishment came unglued as a result of that. They don't know how to figure this out because their political models just do not take into account the Tea Party movement and that merger that's taking place with social conservatives.
And in fact, the National Senatorial Committee, Republican Senatorial Committee, had at first said we will not back Ms. O'Donnell, and as well they had to reverse their stance on this. Do you think that she's going to be able to fare in the general election in a very democratic, traditionally blue state of Delaware?
Well, look, if she loses, it's because of the Republican establishment. And this should be pinned right on them. When I ran for the United States Senate in 2002, the Senatorial Committee got involved in my primary and backed a moderate Republican. I didn't win the primary, but within 72 hours, Karl Rove was on the phone saying, we need you to back the Republican candidate. A candidate who was moderate on all the issues and ultimately lost because moderates never beat liberals. But that doesn't seem to go both ways. Karl Rove blasting her, the establishment backing away from her, saying they wouldn't support her. Well, sure, she's not going to win if people won't support her. So if she loses, it's because of the Republican establishment.
Well, Governor Mitt Romney signed a $5,000 check over to her just this week, so maybe she'll start getting that establishment support. Well, even though Mike Castle himself, at least as of this interview, says that he will not back her.
But see, you look at the incumbents that have lost in this race. Lisa Murkowski in Alaska, another big spending Republican, social liberal who was defeated by Joe Miller. She's talking about running independent. So that's not the first time that's happened. So that's not surprising. Now let me just go back. You mentioned Mitt Romney. Mitt Romney I would not consider to be a part of the Republican establishment. He's one who has crossed over, and he speaks to both sides of the party. So I wouldn't, I think he understands the influence and the importance of value voters. That's why he's been here every year.
I asked Governor Huckabee this exact question this morning. What do you say to Americans who believe that Obama is not Christian as he claims to be?
Well, I mean, that's not up for me. I cannot convince people something that they think the president, by his actions, it's inconsistent with his claims. I mean, he claims to be a Christian, but yet he claims America is not a Christian nation. He seems to be advancing the idea of the Islamic religion. That's up to him. I mean, the White House has to deal with that problem. That's not my work to do.
Well, he ran a campaign on being a uniter and not a divider, as well as a Christian. How do you think he's done in both categories?
He needs to try again. The country is more divided than ever. What's amazing to me, if you look at the Rasmussen polls in terms of Americans who say we're on the wrong track, we're at the same, almost the same point we were prior to his election, when when over 3/4 of Americans said we were headed in the wrong direction and needed to change. Well, he obviously was not the change they wanted, because we're almost at that threshold once again.
Let me just switch gears a little bit here. Remember when the Pentagon decided to ask Reverend Franklin Graham not to come to the National Day of Prayer at the Pentagon? Now you take that example, you look at it compared to how Obama is supporting the so-called Ground Zero mosque. Do you see any kind of like a disconnect there, where we're trying to push certain values over values that have oftentimes been the Judeo-Christian values that we
I think,
abide by?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of the concern that you see among value voters, and you'll see expressed here even this weekend, is that there's not a reluctance to allow religious freedom in this country. I mean, everybody in here that's a part of this conference understands America's uniqueness in welcoming in people with different religious backgrounds. Of course, the founders were very clear on that religious freedom, it was ordered liberty. Was the umbrella in which that came in. That you couldn't participate in a religion that would strike at the very fabric of America, but it had to be a part of advancing America and our common ideals. Historically, that has been the Judeo-Christian religion. And it does appear very clearly, and growing evidence of it would suggest this, that there is this compensation, this political correctness that's gripped this administration and others to want to be deferential toward Islam, but yet kind of slap down that Judeo-Christian perspective, and I think Franklin Graham was a good example of that.
Do you think we're winning the war on ideas out in the world, on the international stage?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think we're still fighting that battle here within the country, but the battle of the hearts and minds of people. I certainly don't think this president has advanced America's standing in the nation. I don't think you advance America by apologizing for our past and who we are and what we stand for. Yes, this is a global world in which we live today, but we're still Americans, and we still have an obligation to be American and to be a country that is a leader and provides direction to the world. I don't think we're doing that.
Final question. Obviously, the 2012 presidential election, a couple years away, list is growing longer and longer by the minute as we in the media speculate on who's going to be running on the Republican side. Who would you like to see on that short list?
You know, I am completely open at this point. I think it's way too early to try to define it. You would say, well, you know, last time it happened months before, and I mean, we were working on this a long time prior. I think what's happening right now is that the conservative movement, the Tea Party movement, social conservatives, you know, the defense conservatives, fiscal conservatives, the traditional conservatives, there's this identity crisis, I think, even within the Republican Party, and I think it's beginning to, that's got to be worked out. I think there's got to be a common vision for America and where political conservatives want to go, and then I think then they look for a candidate that matches that vision, and we're not there yet.